reminds me, many years ago, I was in Germany at a Catholic community. I was speaking there, and the worship was heavenly. It was wonderful. I started to share something from the Word, and they didn't know God's Word.
Wow.
They weren't taught God's Word. And this came out at our conversation afterwards when we went out for a meal. They and all this humanistic thought came out. And I was like, what are you talking about? And even though they loved God and they worshiped and they sang, they did not know the Word of God. And for centuries, the Catholic Church was kept in the dark. That's why it's called the Dark Ages. And they weren't fed the Word of God. And this is a concern, like you mentioned before, that where are these reformers? Where are these great teachers in the pulpits? That's what we've got to pray for.
Amen.
That's what's fire in congregations.
And so as we conclude, folks, it's a spiritual battle. As we keep saying, Satan tried to stop Jesus from becoming our sacrificial lamb. And now he's trying to stop Jesus from becoming our victorious king. And he's going to be crowned king by the redeemed group of the remnant, Israel, as they do obey the covenants after the second coming into the millennial kingdom, and the kingdom is established. But Satan wants to wipe out every Jew, so that cannot happen. Well, we're done, but we had a great conversation with one of our favorite Jewish men, not Olivier, he's one of them, Aaron Lavarco, our
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff operations officer, assisted the national security team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan, and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
NYPD would be the ones to do so.
In that press conference with President Trump, a reporter asked you whether you believe that President Trump is in fact a fascist, a word that you've used in the past. You were about to answer, then President Trump sort of jumped in and he said, quote, "That's okay, you can just say yes. It's easier than explaining it." So, Mr. Mayor-elect, just to be very clear, do you think that President Trump is a fascist?
And after President Trump said that, I said yes. And
so you do?
And that's something that I've said in the past. I say it today. And I think what I appreciated about the conversation that I had with the president was that we were not shy about the places of disagreement about the politics that has brought us to this moment. And we also wanted to focus on what it could look like to deliver on a shared analysis of an affordability crisis for New Yorkers.
You've also said in the past that President Trump has engaged in a, quote, attack on our democracy. You've called him a despot. Do you still believe President Trump is a threat to the democracy?
Everything that I've said in the past, I continue to believe. And that's the thing that I think is important in our politics, is that we don't shy away from where we have disagreements, but we understand what it is that brings us to that table. Because I'm not coming into the Oval Office to make a point or make a stand. I'm coming in there to deliver for New Yorkers. And a few weeks ago, I was asked by a reporter 3 words to describe myself. I said, New York City. And that's what animated that conversation. How do we deliver for the people of New York City?
I think that some of your supporters would be curious to know, you say you stand by your past statements that, yes, he's a threat to the democracy. How do you square working with someone who you still think is a threat to the democracy?
I think working for the people of New York City demands that you work with everyone and anyone, and that you always look to find those areas of agreement while not overlooking the places of disagreement. And I think this was something that came up in our meeting. We spoke about immigration. We spoke about the fact that in New York City, we have sanctuary city policies that allow for the city to work with the federal government on around 170 serious crimes. The concern for so many New Yorkers comes about anything beyond that. And I spoke about the importance of us being able to protect New Yorkers, and some of the incidents that we see, they do not do that.
War Monday, folks. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, the loss of Western civilization is on the horizon if we don't wake up and stop electing Islamist Marxists like that man right there, Zohran Mamdani, the man who will run New York City the next 4 years. We have to do more than just ask questions. We must stand up and fight this war against our way of life from every angle, especially on the information front lines. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you are in a fifth-generation war, as retired Lieutenant General Mike Flynn and Soldier Boone Cutler teach us in their book, A Citizen's Guide to 5GW. You got to go get that book, folks. And no, I don't get any money from them. I just have read it, and I agree with them. I've fought the information war before as a military member of the U.S. Armed Forces. The lies about how socialism is better than the people governing themselves, the lies about how it's never really been tried in our country, the lies about how socialist government is like Christianity, and the lies about Islamism are all battles on the information war front. My guest today was with us back in September before the election to sound the alarm, and returns today to discuss the implications of this disaster for freedom and prosperity unfolding before our very eyes. Dr. Alex McFarland is a youth, religion, and culture expert and author of 20 books, including the newly released 100 Bible Questions and Answers on Prophecy in the End Times. He is heard live daily on nearly 200 stations across the United States on American Family Radio Network, and is host of the Alex McFarland Show on NRB TV. Alex serves as the director of Worldview for Charis Bible College. Alex, welcome back to the Rob Maness Show, sir.
Well, Colonel Maness, thank you for having me. It is a great honor to be on. I respect you so much. You've served God and country honorably and are doing so fruitfully, and it's a real privilege to speak with you.
Well, I appreciate you coming back on. I mean, we talked about this in the first show that you would agree to come on if he won, especially. And he won. Now we have this meeting. I don't know if you got to see any of the cold open clip. It was an interview between Christine Welker and Mamdani about the meeting with the President of the United States that just occurred in the Oval Office. What are your initial takeaways from seeing that and hearing some of the things that were said in that meeting?
Well, look, trust me, he is in the bullpen warming up for a presidential run in 28. Guarantee it. He, AOC, Gavin Newsom, I don't know exactly, but I'm not a betting man, but I would confidently wager that he will be on a presidential ticket for the Democrat Party in the years ahead. And really, did you notice how he didn't really answer the questions? She said, you said Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. Do you stand by that statement? And he didn't answer. It's a yes or no question. Do you? And he said, well, I'm working for New Yorkers. So, he was so adept at giving non-answers. He's great presidential timber, at least for the left. But, here's the thing that I want to ask whenever I hear those lefties say, our democracy, I'm like, why do you think we have a democracy? The United States of America is not a democracy. It's a Judeo-Christian representative republic. It's really a Presbyterian form of government, much like elders in the church that go on behalf of the parishioners. We have representatives, but the fact that a Marxist Muslim could win the mayorship over the 13th largest economy in the world, it's very unsettling. But we have a lot of what Rush Limbaugh would call low information voters, that people are just casting ballots based on the promises de jour, not even is this person's platform good, but is this person philosophically capable of governing within this constitutional republic? And it really does jeopardize the future of the country.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to get your not your feelings on it, but your take on this guy and the president meeting with him. Look, I wasn't surprised the president met with him. because he's met with communist leaders around the world.
Yeah.
The two biggest ones are North Korea and Xi from China, and
Yeah.
he's met with not so nice guys that are some called dictators like Vladimir Putin. He just met with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, MBS, Mohammed bin Sultan. There, so I even tweeted out about this. I said I'm just a bit surprised that people are surprised that the president of the United States met with this guy.
Yeah.
I guess the difference is he's a mayor of a U.S. city, and
Yeah.
he's openly Islamist and Marxist.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Donald Trump is really, really smart.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
uncanny how wise Donald Trump is. And I'm a big fan. I mean, I've met him. I've been on calls. I make no secret of the fact that I believe Donald J. Trump is the greatest president of our lifetime. And I don't agree with everything. I vehemently disagree with the cancellation of the penny, for one thing. I mean, that might sound rather picayune and into the minutia, but I really do think it's a bad thing, because no sooner did the ending of the penny get announced that they're now talking about phasing out nickels. And I'm just money comes hard, and I want exact change. So I'm not blind. I don't agree with everything, but I will tell you, as much as I appreciated Ronald Reagan, Donald Trump is the greatest president of our lifetime for a lot of reasons. But the old saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking of Mom, little boy, you don't know, you're in the room with a grown up. And I think it was very wise of Donald Trump initiating that meeting right off the bat, because, he initiated the meeting, and it was on his terms. And I will say, New York under Mamdani interacting with the Trump administration, it will never be on Mamdani's terms, despite what accolades Mamdani is telling himself.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned a little bit ago that he was very smooth, very good from a Democrat perspective. He reminds me of Barack Obama. Is who he reminds me of, the way he speaks and the way he presents himself, and he's not stupid. He just thinks he knows things that just aren't so, as Ronald Reagan, to paraphrase Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
The big issue that I'm concerned about with this particular position, Alex, is that he gets to do so many political appointments. New York City's government is as big or even bigger than a state government in many ways in a lot of states. And it's the eighth 8 million people, and it's only like 1 or 2% Muslim, and I think there's about 25 or 26% Jewish people, and then 57 or so percent Christians. Why on earth are these voters voting for this? I don't get it.
Well, leave it to the Democrats to, I'll say this for the Democrats. They have the long view, and, they groom people over decades till they throw them to the curb. And, I think about people like Jesse Jackson. I'm old enough to remember in the 80s, it was just a given that Jesse Jackson would be president one day. And then, the Democrats, because, people are expendable to the Democrats. Joe Biden was useful till he wasn't. And then he was thrown to the curb. And in the most undemocratic of fashions, Kamala Harris was, coronated. And it was not, she never won a primary. I mean, it was absolutely oligarchical. So Mamdani is being groomed. Basically whatever behind closed doors meetings needed to happen happened to make him the candidate. But, I think about Mamdani meeting with Trump. Okay, Trump's rounding errors represent more money than this man has ever known about or handled. Really. I mean, you think about that. So I'm glad the president met with him. It is to the president's and America's advantage for, Trump's intel to know everything about this treasonous figure. And I just want to say this. Look, I'm a Christian. My home is in heaven. I work for Jesus, and that's where my heart, my loyalties, and my abilities lie. But I do love the United States of America. I've traveled the world. I do believe even still this is the best place on the planet to live. I passionately care about America. Next year, our nation will be a millennia old. So if we want what we've had, we're going to have to reaffirm and, for the Democrats at least, tolerate, but for those of us that actually are patriotic, affirm and champion the things that gave us what we had.
Yeah.
And what gave us 250 years of stability, prosperity, and liberty. It was not Marxism. It was not socialism. It was not pork barrel big government, LBJ Great Society waste. It was not $1 trillion, trillion spent on poverty, which is basically subsidized gang involvement, illegitimacy, the breakdown of the black family. I mean, the absolute tragedy that is the loss of black American families. This is what the Democrats wanted and subsidized, and we've got to turn back from it. I truly believe, Colonel, that in the 21st century, you spell treason Democrat.
Well, I can't disagree with you there, Alex. We got to take a break. When we come back, I want to dive into some of the things that we need to do. We as a people need to act on, because action is the only thing that's going to get this done. Talking does not get it done. And we've got some things that are in the hopper, so to speak, that Dr. McFarland is aware of, and we'll talk to some of those when we come right back here on More War Monday.
Do you appreciate all the free programming we produce here at Worldview Tube? Well, if you do, we need your partnership now. If you're already supporting us, thank you. If you're not, would you please consider doing so? We have to have a big November and December end of the year giving. Please go here right now to this website, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You can give through credit card. You can give through PayPal. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. You'll also find our phone number. Simply use that phone number by leaving a voicemail for Melissa or texting her, and my wife will get back with you and help you make your contribution over the phone. We send out tax receipts with our EIN number, well, the first week of February of each year. We, again, have to have a very big November and December as we get ready for pushing out more Christian worldview programming for 2026. So thank you for going now to worldviewfoundation.com. That's worldviewfoundation.com.
Cuomo laugh and agree when a radio show host said that I would cheer another 9/11. When I listen to the current mayor of this city explaining his decision to endorse Andrew Cuomo as a decision to ensure that New York City does not become Europe, that we do not leave it to violent extremists who burn churches in Nigeria. When I listen to all of this and then turn on TV and see ads that have the words of terrorism and jihad on top of my face that not only mock the way that I eat, but are all intended to terrify New Yorkers as to the prospect of having a Muslim mayor, I decided that it was simply too much. It was too much to think of these as the acts of desperate men looking to salvage the little power that they still had. It was, in fact, a reflection of Islamophobia within our political system that has become so endemic that when we hear it, we do not know from which party it comes. We just know that it is a fact of life in our city's politics. And amidst all of this, the focus of so many is just how much bigotry they can engage in.
There it is, folks. Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube, where we bring you a Christian worldview is the motto of the network, Worldview Tube. And its CEO, Mr. Brandon House. And my guest today is Dr. Alex McFarland, who is well-versed in the Christian worldview himself and talks about it on the same radio networks. And Alex, there's a couple of things that operation there in that little clip, and it's worth showing frequently and doing the analysis of it. One of them is people that don't realize that Mondami is a Muslim, and by the concept of taqiyya, he is encouraged to lie if it furthers the objectives of Islam. And their God, Allah, and Prophet Muhammad. And he does it well, and you can't really tell until you get to the part where he uses the word Islamophobia, which is an absolute lie. It's an absolute lie. Talk to folks about how they can recognize these kinds of things effectively. And then I want to jump into Bridget Gabriel's article that she wrote about the new law that's going through Congress about Sharia law.
Well, let's go back a little bit, even to 9/11. Well, even to 93, when there was an attempted bombing of the World Trade Towers back in 93.
Yeah.
I did one of my postgraduate degrees on world religions, and so I had studied Islam extensively at the graduate level, and then since 9/11 have debated imams. I've done Q&A at numerous universities throughout the U.S. and Canada. And in fact, I will say this, Colonel Maness, about 30 hours after 9/11 happened, I was literally in the rubble of Ground Zero for 2 weeks doing chaplaincy work with the Billy Graham Ministry, and it was my privilege on the day the U.S. stock market reopened. I was there to give a devotion and pray. You could have heard a pin drop. Met with Mayor Giuliani on at least 2 occasions. And so this thing about New York and 9/11 and Islamic terrorism, I know something about. In fact, it was my privilege to speak about 2 months after 9/11. I was asked for, in my home state of North Carolina, the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, to give about a half-day lecture on what is Islam and the history of Islamic terrorism, and then the contrasting an objective moral human rights epistemology versus Sharia. So, a number of other government agencies that I can't really divulge, I've been asked to be a consultant and talk about Islam. Now, that being said, when I watched that Mamdani clip, and you're right, there is the Islamic concept of taqiyya, that a Muslim can lie in the cause of Allah. You know, hey, I was at West Texas A&M University outside of Amarillo, Colonel Maness, and a Muslim exchange student. We were talking about Jews, we were talking about Israel, talking about America, and a Muslim exchange student, and this was 5 years ago, but said to me, Allah will kill you, Alex McFarland, and I wish that he would allow me to be the one to do it. Now, this is, and I'm not inflammatory, I'm just being very factual and academic. So listen, when Mamdani, philosophical questions and disagreements about Islam and Sharia, this is the left's default tool in their toolkit. They'll say, oh, well, you're phobic. You're Islamophobic. You're transphobic. You're homophobic. See, you fear what you don't understand, and you irrelevant white men are clinging to the power that you think you're losing. No, not afraid of anybody, I assure you. I fear God. I care about truth, but promise you, not afraid, not phobic of anybody. I promise you that. Here's the thing, though. In trying to preserve what is good and true and constitutional, and conversely, trying to warn people and oppose that which is untrue, ungodly, immoral, and treasonous, it doesn't mean we're phobic. The other thing that we need to point out is he said, during the campaign, the warnings about Islam, it shows the extent of people's bigotry. Folks, understand that this is a fallacy, because Islam is not an ethnicity. Now, in critiquing Islam and Mamdani's worldview, this isn't racism. Islam is a philosophy, a theology, a worldview, a culture, but it's not an ethnicity.
Right.
And did you see how very smoothly he basically was saying, and this is really an ad hominem attack. There are really several fallacies at play, but to critique Islam is not bigotry. It's simply respectful academic discussion, which, of course, independent thought and critical thinking is not something that Democrat leaders care too much about.
That's true. That's how they keep their flocks together, is by not encouraging them to think properly. We've got a hand up in the live audience, Alex. Let's go ahead and take that. Shell is our host over there. I see we've got a hand up, Shell.
Yes, sir. We have Miss Naomi, sir.
Hi there, Shell, Colonel, and guest, Drax, everybody. Interesting discussion. I'd kind of like to throw out a couple of things and just get your impression, please. The Madami thing, I don't know if anybody listened to him when he spoke. He said his biggest supporters are the illegals. He told us how he got elected. Now, I don't know what the percentage of illegals are throughout the country still until, everything happens. But that was he said, really, it was the illegals. He said the immigrant community. That's how I got voted in. So I think we better pretty much listen to that. And I like all of your impressions, sir. I will say I have grown up.
Naomi, do you have a question for the Colonel and his guest?
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I wanted to get his impression on that part. We're talking about how did he get elected? I guess that's my question. Have we looked at that? We seem to be looking at all type of things, but we have a lot of illegals. What is your thought on that?
Well, by the way, thank you for listening and thank you for calling in. The thing of voter fraud and allowing unqualified people to cast ballots. Again, this is something that, the Democrats have basically made voter fraud an art form. And, they want felons to be able to vote. They want illegals to vote. I could not tell you how many cities all along the southern border in Texas and Arizona, of the Somali Republic of Minnesota, that the Democrats love when people are able to vote that really don't have the constitutional right to vote. Now, I want every citizen to be able to vote, obviously, but we want citizens to be informed. We want citizens to be able to make true votes that will bring to office leaders that will support the Constitution and bring prosperity. Socialism / Marxism will not bring prosperity. It will lower the living standard for everyone. But there's no saying, Colonel, that politicians look to the next election. Statesmen look to the next generation. And in that quest for power, and then while they're in power, like Barack Obama did, like for instance, railroading the egregiously misnamed Affordable Care Act through. And of course, Nancy Pelosi back, whatever it was, 13 years ago, said, well, let's sign it into law, then we'll read it. My goodness. And now healthcare and the standards of care healthcare costs are up. The standard of care is down for everybody, which is the inverse of what Barack Obama lied to the American people and promised. But Mamdani is the same way. The caller makes a great point. He depended on immigrants, undocumented, to elect him, and those votes were tallied and allowed to stand, and he'll be inaugurated soon as mayor. But this is just not sustainable for our country. And it is very sad that people don't love America enough to play by the rules and preserve this country.
Yeah, it wasn't lost on me. It isn't lost on me. And I think if you listen to him closely, when he uses the term New Yorkers in his comments in these two clips that we showed, and in the presser gathering in the Oval Office, he is talking about illegal aliens too, because that's why they have to draw the line at not letting ICE deport them. And they try to say that they're not criminals and they haven't violated the law, and the 170 plus, I think that he discussed, because he considers them New Yorkers when they're not New Yorkers, they're not Americans, they're not citizens. And
they might happen to be in the geographic location known as Manhattan or the boroughs, but they're not New Yorkers. And notice he said we have sanctuary city policies.
Exactly. He did.
See,
say
that needs to be made. There should be zero sanctuary cities in the United States of America.
You're absolutely right. We got to take another break. When we come back, I want to touch on this law that a couple of brave congressmen have put forward to outlaw Sharia law. But I want to get your take, Alex, and do a little bit of teaching for the audience on exactly why Sharia law is incompatible with the Constitution of the United States and the laws of this land. We'll be right back with Dr. Alex McFarland.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You have been very vocal recently about the fact that New York City may fall under socialist leadership coming up very soon with Zohran Mamdani. Give me your whole read on what happens if New York City becomes run by a socialist.
It's not good for New York City, I can tell you that much. It's very scary. We were sort of born in the city of Miami out of the trauma of having fled our country of birth, which was Cuba. My dad came at 12, my mother at 7. And there, a young, charismatic leader, not too different from Mamdani, said, convince the population, give us all your property, give us all your businesses, and we'll make everybody equal. And he did. He made everybody equally poor. He made everybody equally miserable. He made everybody equally repressed. The city will, unfortunately, have a tremendously massive exodus of people probably coming to Miami, to be honest. And it's sad. It's sad to see one of America's great cities fall victim to a lie.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And we're talking about the fall of Western civilization is on the horizon if we do not stop in the United States of America electing people that hate the ideas of this country and that really aren't of this country. And my guest today is Dr. Alex McFarland. And Alex, before we dive into the socialism piece, which I think is the on-ramp to tyranny, it doesn't matter whether you call it communism, Nazism, Islamism, they're all tyranny, and socialism is the on-ramp to all of that when you get into this kind of stuff. But Sharia law is when I'm talking about the Islamist point of view and Islamism, I'm talking about those that want to implement Sharia law, and it's a form. You listed off all the things that Islam is, but you left one piece out that I wanted to add to it, and that Islam is a form of government. It is not only a religious belief or set of beliefs and philosophies. It is a form of government backed by this law called Sharia law. And there's a bill in Congress, Bridget Gabrielle, who grew up in Lebanon when it was Christian and saw the Muslim migration into Lebanon that destroyed it to what it is today, the complete destruction of a prosperous and free society there. She wrote about this law that's been put forward, I think Randy Fine and Keith Self, and I can't remember who the third gentleman is, that's behind it to outlaw Sharia law in this country. Why do we even need that?
Well, we need it because more and more people don't understand our Republican constitutional form of government, and it's in jeopardy, really, the preservation. And I always say this, if you want what we've got, you have to tolerate what gave us that. Now, I want to say, if somebody wants to be atheist or Muslim, they personally are free to do that. Nobody is, you can believe whatever cockamamie thing you want to believe. But in terms of implementing it, number one, see, Article 4 of the Constitution guarantees every person a Republican form of government.
Correct.
This is a representative republic. And here is part of the reason that Sharia must be outlawed, forbidden in the USA, because, as you said, it is not merely a theology, it is a theocracy, it is a government. And so we cannot allow a foreign government to exist and operate within the American government. Let me give you an example. In 2010, there was a New Jersey case of domestic violence, and a Muslim woman tried to get a restraining order against an abusive husband. And the judge denied it because the man was a Muslim, and he pledged Sharia law. And initially, a judge in New Jersey would not protect an abused wife from an Islamic husband, because in Islam, the husband can beat the wife for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is like burning breakfast. So now eventually that was overturned. But, I would say, even if somebody is an ardent secularist and they don't believe in God or Christianity, fair enough. But just in the spirit of human rights, Sharia, which, by the way, means straight path, and by that, enforced straight path, does not believe in free speech for all, does not believe in equal rights for all, does not believe in freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, does not allow without penalty for someone to change religions, like to disconvert from Islam. And so, my goodness, Sharia law is the absolute antithesis of a free republic. And, every elected official, every military official like yourself, when you serve so honorably as you did, people make a commitment to protect the U.S. Constitution from threats within and without. And the U.S. Constitution is utterly incompatible with Sharia law. Now, if people want to believe in Allah, personally, they are free to do that. But in terms of American culture, American jurisprudence and government falling under the sway of Sharia, God, forbid, and by I mean the true God, the biblical God, Yahweh, may God forbid.
Absolutely. Well, we've got another caller over in the audience. Let's go ahead and take that question real quick, Doc. Go ahead, Shel.
We have Paul, sir.
Thank you for allowing me to ask questions. Honor Colonel Maness and Dr. McFarland. I just want to say we know that there are many dangers to this Mondani mayor being mayor. But I have a question. We know that he doesn't have the power to implement many of the promises he's made. What are your largest concerns concerning the power that he does have to implement things? That's it.
Great question. You know, it's funny, in a city of, as far as we know, 105 billionaires, he says it should be illegal to be a billionaire. I really, and Colonel Maness, you feel free to disagree. I don't think his mayorship of New York is really even all that relevant. This is merely a stepping stone. This is merely a dress rehearsal for when the Democrats will run him as a presidential candidate, either in 28 or 32. So I don't think he'll be able to implement. I mean, you know, free rent and rent caps and government-run grocery stores. I don't think he has the time or really the ability to implement too much. But I just think this is it's going to be visibility. It's basically a necessary PR step to try to feather out his resume and his notoriety, and the Democrats, the most anti-American party imaginable, they're merely grooming him for the presidential run he inevitably will have within several years.
Yeah, I don't know that I disagree with you, Alex. But here's where I think about it a little bit differently. The significance of this is more like the camel's nose under the tent, because you're right, he is going to run for president, in my opinion, at some point, probably be vice president on the ticket as vice president candidate too, if they win, become that first. Yeah. But the camel's nose under the tent is very dangerous, because as we see in Texas, even if in the reddest of red states of Texas, there are Sharia courts in Irvine, Texas, that are documented there. The governor has had to declare the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council on American Islamic Relations CARE, their subsidiaries here in the United States, as foreign terrorist organizations. And that's led, thankfully, to President Trump saying he's going to declare the Muslim Brotherhood finally as a foreign terrorist organization. But that nose under the tent to continue to erode the constitutional representative republic requirements of the law. And as you said, if a whole party that is anti-American is behind him, that's where I think the significance lies, as to what's over that horizon if all of those things come true and we don't deal with them now.
Yeah. Well, that's why, you know, and I'm speaking to Christians. If you're a believer, no matter what strata, Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, you know, 1 John 5:1 says, whoever believes that Jesus is the Christ is born of God. Look, we're going to have to work together. And for one thing, evangelize people. Let me just say that the Christian worldview is the only worldview that meets the 4 C's of a worldview. It's cohesive, comprehensive, corroborated, and completing. Let me explain what I mean. It's cohesive. It hangs together. It's comprehensive. It answers all the big questions. It is corroborated by evidence, and it is completing. It will fulfill you. So the Christian worldview is true. You know, somebody asked there was a great scholar, R.C. Sproul. He's in heaven now. We interviewed him on the radio years ago. Dr. R.C. Sproul. Somebody said, what's the difference between the God of Christianity and the gods of all the other religions? And Dr. Sproul said, well, the God of Christianity exists. That was a great answer.
That is
Here's
a
the
great
thing.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah, the God of Christianity actually exists, or as they would say in philosophical terms, obtains. Christianity is true and real. Only Jesus rose from the dead. And by the way, let me just give a little bit of history. Muhammad was born in 571. Islam started about 610. So, the Jews had been in their land almost 4,000 years before Muhammad even was born. Whenever I have college students that, want to take me to task about my support for Israel and what about the rights of the Palestinians and the Gazans and Hamas, I'm like, so do you believe in the rights of indigenous people? Oh, yes, indigenous people rights. Yay. Well, I say, great, because if you are going to advocate for the land ownership and the rights of indigenous people, there is no more indigenous of indigenous peoples on the planet than the Israelites in the land of Israel. So let's stand for Israel. But here, let me say this as well. In America right now, I interviewed George Barna in February of this year. Barna believes there are 100 to 120 million Christians. Yay, praise God, that actually really do have a relationship with Christ. And, almost to a person, Christians care about America because, it's freedom, prosperity, stability that enables us to do what the church in America has done for 2 centuries and, contribute to the fulfillment of the Great Commission.
Right.
But we're going to have to evangelize people. And to every Christian, every church, number one, we need to pray. Because, spirited debate aside, Colonel, even these Muslims, even Mamdani, persons that philosophically I vehemently disagree with, but these people are souls that will exist eternally somewhere. And we wish them no ill. We don't want them to be lost and go to hell without Christ. We want them to be born again. But years ago, Ann Coulter took a lot of heat because she said the solution to the Middle East and the world is that Muslims get evangelized. And everybody said, oh, horror that she would be so bigoted. But that really is the hope of the world and the hope of America. Our organization, we train people to share the gospel. Not only do we teach political science and we try to help young people by the thousands understand America, but we are our ministry and all of my staff and everybody, we're at alexmcfarland.com. But for the next 24 to 36 months, we have really 2 buttons on our keyboard: spiritual awakening and evangelism. Revival in America, and teaching people who are believers to lead others to Christ. And I realize that might seem daunting, but 30% of the population is born again Christian. And so we just get engaged and empowered. And I think in our lifetime, probably sooner than we realize, we could see a major move of God's Spirit that would contribute to the saving of our land.
Yeah, I think we're in the beginning of that, to be honest with you. That's my opinion based on everything that I'm seeing around me. What you just said, though, is very important, and we need it desperately, is Christians being taught on how to evangelize and how to spread the message effectively, because we are getting beat in the information war, not just as Christians, but as free men and women of the United States of America. We got to take one more break, Dr. McFarland. When we come back, I want to show a little clip about Mamdani's anti-Semitism, because it's real.
Sure.
We'll be right back.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
The importance for me of international solidarity is that it takes me out of the American political landscape and reminds me just how tame some of the things are that I'm actually calling for. True. And it reminds me of the necessity of grounding ourselves in the struggles as opposed to the fights around the struggles. For anyone to care about these issues, we have to make them hyperlocal. We have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF. We are in a country where those connections abound, especially in New York City. You have so many opportunities to make clear the ways in which that struggle over there is tied to capital's interest over here.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. And we are in a war. It's a war for Western civilization's continued existence. Christianity created Western civilization. We came out of Israel. Christ was a Jewish person. My guest today is Dr. Alex McFarland. We've been talking about this all hour, but I wanted to just turn to this a little bit, Alex, because there's a political debate happening right now, especially in the America First, Make America Great Again coalition about Israel. And I make no bones about it. I have disagreements with the government of Israel today, how they let October 7th happen, why they tried to get America involved in a war in Iran more than what the president was willing to do with the strikes on the nuclear facilities, which was in our vital interest to destroy, by the way. But a ground war would not have been. I have major disagreements with the government of Israel, but that doesn't mean I'm an anti-Semitic. And what he just said there was, when you feel the boot of NYPD on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. We have to come to grips with this here in America and really educate ourselves and our brothers and sisters in Christ especially, but also our fellow citizens from other belief systems, that we are not here to allow a people, because they are a people, no matter whether they're black, whether they're white, whether they're red, yellow, or Jewish, be discriminated against and intimidated and have violence committed on them just because of their existence. And that's what I hear when I hear that phrase coming from him.
Sure, sure. Well, and by the way, before time fleets away, Colonel Maness, let me say thank you for your courage and your meticulous journalism to address issues like this. And I feel just profoundly grateful to converse with you today. It is interesting, isn't it, that in this age of social justice and human rights and just DEI and equity pervasively preached, the one racism that is allowed to have a pass is really the world's oldest hatred, the hatred of the Jewish people. Isn't it interesting? 1% of the population, just a scant few million in the whole world, Jewish people, and yet anti-Semitism is given a pass. And one of the 99 reasons that I could never be a Democrat, at least in this age, is because I don't hate Jews. I love Jewish people, and by the way, not only every Christian, but certainly every person that enjoys the blessings of Western civilization, things like the rule of law equally applied, and human rights, and just the moral code that has given us stability and prosperity, not to mention the Holy Scriptures and the message of Jesus Christ. Every human on the planet is immeasurably indebted to the Jewish people. And so, there's a lot we can say on this issue, but my goodness, the Islamic animus toward the Jews is just unforgivable. And yeah, I was going to say this. Islam started about 610 AD, and 100 years ago, before the era of political correctness, there were a number of books written about Islam. And I'll reference one. There was a book called The World's Great Religions by Samuel S. Braden. And it was a very academic, scholarly textbook. And it was published around 1925. And it went through many reprintings up until probably the early 80s. But Samuel S. Braden said this, and I quote, that Islam was the first religion started simply to be in direct conscious opposition to Judaism and Christianity. Now, how Muhammad, who, as far as we know, was brought up at least part of his young life in a Catholic orphanage, and he had some reasons apparently to have some animosity toward the Catholic orphanage in which he was raised. But you think about this. Here's a religion. It's a whole governmental system, Islam, that was started to be in direct conscious opposition to Judaism and Christianity. Now, another point that's worth saying is one of the things Muslims will say that Islam grew just exponentially. Within its earliest formative years, it grew. And another religion text from about 75 years ago said that the growth of Islam is proof. Listen to this quote. The growth of Islam at its beginnings was proof that if you hold a sword to someone's neck, they will repeat what you tell them to say.
Yeah,
the Shahada. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. And that's submission. If you recite the Shahada, you have become a Muslim. I debated an imam after 9/11. He said, you just became a Muslim because you recited the Shahada. And I said, do you have to mean it? And this imam from Atlanta said, no, you don't have to mean it. You just recite it. For the record, I'm not a Muslim, and nor did I become one. But, folks, Christianity aside, just if you care about human rights, liberty, the rights of Jews, the right for Israel to exist, the right for self-governance, and the right to self-defense. I mean, the PLO, Hamas, Sharia, they stand against all of these things. And I guess one last thing, Colonel Maness, I would say is, do we really believe the world will be safer if Israel didn't exist and the entire Middle East was, Hamas? Come on, think, people, think.
Yeah, all you have to do is look at what happens inside the theocratic countries on a regular basis under Islamism, and it's the difference is incredibly clear, and you have to be living under a rock to not have a good idea of it by now. With the one of the things that we face is this technology and ease of communication now, and I wanted to just have you touch on Hijra really quick, the Islamist concept of migration. What is that for? So people understand why are they coming here if they don't like a Christian-based government? Because that's what we are, really.
Yeah. Well, and New York City is the highest population of Jewish people anywhere outside of Israel. They're coming here because this is cultural jihad. It's like Yasser Arafat said in 1984 that it will be by the womb of the Arabic woman that Islam conquers the world. And so, my goodness, look at London, look at the UK. The migration is their way, at least one leg of the stool of the Islamic takeover of the world. And that's why, hey, look, if you love America and believe in Christ's Great Commission, number one, be a Christian, get married, stay married, have babies, raise them to love Jesus. You know,
Yeah.
There was a great book about 10 years ago, Colonel Maness, called How Civilizations Die by David Goldberg. Not a Christian book. And yet the sociologist basically says that in the affluent West, we could face demographic winter. And in the vacuum created by the absence of Christian families and, Western civ-minded children, into that empty space is rushing Islam. And so David Goldberg in How Civilizations Die basically said, look, we need Jews and Christians to have babies and raise them up in the ways of the Mosaic Law and the Bible itself.
Oh, you're absolutely right, Dr. McFarland. That's where Mondani came from, Uganda, as a migrant into a civilization that's not having enough babies, as Elon Musk talks about all the time. We are not having enough babies. Well, sir, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to get you back at some time in the future to actually talk about how to train people that are Christians to do the evangelism.
Faith, spiritual values, moral issues, government, economy, education, work, responsibility. What we think about these depends on our worldview. Now, VCY America presents Worldview Radio with Brannon House.
Welcome. We're going to be joined by Alex Newman, who is in Brazil at COP. What is it? COP 2030. It's the big climate change conference. Apparently, as I told you guys yesterday, it got so hot there. The climate change was so hot, there was fires breaking out. And that's going to happen worldwide, folks. If we don't get this climate change, this man-made